I was just in Greece. We have superstition there, like the evil eye, right? It's like when people are saying too many good things about somebody, something bad's going to happen to them. Like that's like a superstition there. And I don't really believe that stuff.
I'm not superstitious, but a little stitious.
My so he's got like a little pot belly now. My aunt, because he's got blonde hair, blue eyes, and my aunt was like, oh my god, Joe, he looks like you from the stomach down.
That means he's got a little wiener. Sights and sounds and edges found. You will now get down with the Underground. Posted up on the OTC Fantasy YouTube channel. Dynasty Underground is back in your life. We're also found on your favorite audio platforms, and all of our work can be found at otcffb.com. Our 2026 rankings are up, and make sure you subscribe as we're getting close to the season, and you don't want to be limited as far as roster moves, waiver pickups, trade ideas. Open it up for full access with that subscription. So go check it out at otcffb.com. I, of course, am Trav, hosting and West Coasting, but more important than just me, the entire band is back together tonight, folks. We got one wise man, Jax Falcone, back from a trip to the East. Looking forward to maybe a little bit more of the mass hole coming out, considering you were back in your own motherland. Great to see you, brother.
Thank you so much. I gotta tell you that the humidity, I can't believe you guys deal with that. That is unbelievable. That is unbelievable. You know, I lived there for 20 some odd years of my life. I move out here and it's just absolutely gorgeous. I moved back. I went back for a week. It's incredible what you guys put up with. I mean, and then the winters, it's unbelievable. Did you know there's nicer places on the planet? You can just move there. You don't even have to ask anybody. You just go there tomorrow. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, the best coast is always accepting new visitors for sure. And of course, with me also, Joquavius Kuvetakis. We did, of course, an episode this past week with Jacob Sanderson filling in for Jax Falcone. Joe, wonderful to see you as always. How you feeling, my man?
I'm just glad that we've got the ratio back today the way we want it. All right. Yeah. 2 Canadian standoffs. I do not like it. I'd rather have a mass hole co-hosting with me than a second Canadian. No offense to Jacob. Wonderful to meet him. But
yes,
boy, did I miss my guys and being together to talk about all things fantasy and beyond.
Joe, we've had some fill-ins, we've had some 2-man booths, we've had, me gone, you gone, whatever the case. But I got to tell you, it feels like home when we're all together. It's pretty special. I don't know if the listener agrees. Maybe they like someone else new. I really have no idea. But from this chair, this is the way it ought to be. So
felt like cheating. Felt like cheating.
Yeah,
it did a little bit. Yeah, I felt
did you kiss
a little
him, or
bit
what happened?
Yeah, we didn't actually kiss him. We
Okay.
didn't actually kiss him. We don't kiss on the first date, so that's good.
Yeah, that's
you
good.
have that with you.
Good.
But maybe next time, you never know. But no, this feels like home, especially from the host chair. Being comfortable. I know how you guys kind of operate and how to throw you guys things and whatnot. And so, yeah, it's just good to have the boys back. We talked for probably about an hour before the show today, so. It's familiarity is a good thing. Boys, we got lots to talk about on this show. It's been a long time since the three of us were back in the lab together. Training camp has continued to be in full swing. Jax, I know you got an episode in just this morning that should be dropping before this show, so it should be out right now with Greg Branos from Coach Speak Index. So go check that out, folks. But getting back on the Dynasty Underground, we're going to get into a bunch of training camp buzz, guys. There's a bunch of stuff that we need to talk about by way of player battles, role indicators, a bunch of different stuff that these offensive coordinators are throwing out there, and the beat writers are running rampant. But first, boys, we actually got to talk about a little bit of real football before we dive into kind of the pre-football in training camp, because one Nookie Beck debuted, and we were talking about it on Twitter, boys. He was more Nookie than he was Crazy Eyes in that game. Carson Beck went 15 for 19 for 188 and a touchdown, quarterback rating of 125.4, gentlemen. Joe, you looked like you were chomping at the bit to get into your microphone there, so I'll throw it to you. What did you think about Carson Beck's debut?
Well, I mean, no offense, Trav, but I think you introed this wrong. You got to call it the Buscemi scale, right? The Buscemi matrix, something like that. People don't know what you're talking about. Maybe they didn't watch Boardwalk Empire.
Okay, sorry.
But no
the
doubt.
Buscemi scale sounds good. I think that's right.
That does,
yeah. We weren't sure where on the Buscemi scale one Mr. Carson Beck was going to fall. We thought he might be Donnie, just completely out of his element out there, but no. Dude came in a boss right away, completely unexpected, caught me off guard. Honestly, I did not expect it to go that smoothly. I am reluctantly going to capitulate and throw out a very, very early hashtag Trav was right off of one preseason game. Oh yeah. Oh, Jax. Of course. You want credit for this.
I mean, I don't mean to. First of all, I gotta say, I sent something on Twitter, about this, like he was good or whatever, and someone responded. They're like, "Aren't you above fucking victory lapping after the first preseason game?" And I was like, "Absolutely not, sir. You must not know my work." No, I am completely comfortable victory lapping after one preseason game, but I think more so, I think that the thing that we learned from that was what we were really trying to say was a player like Carson Beck will likely get a few opportunities to sell at profit, even if you're a non-believer, which was the sort of the prospects of why we liked him in rookie drafts and why we felt like we missed. While I felt like, I missed him in more spots than I would have liked to have. I famously said that early on in the process, I was drafting him early. Trav, you saw me draft him at like the 204 in a 10-team. It's a triple, quarterback type of league. Whatever, quarterbacks are pretty valuable, but still very early in the season, off season, very early in that draft. And, I felt like maybe that was like maybe a mistake. And then later in the, draft season, I felt like that was a mistake to fade him, because I was feeling like we were going to see something like this. And the other part of this is, Jay Wood, who spent a lot of time with us developing the model, all sorts of stuff. He's brilliant. He has a quarterback model. I have the anatomy of a quarterback. I know John Lobb has a pretty good little quarterback model where he tries to figure things out. All three of us really like Carson Beck on paper. And that's where the sort of Buscemi scale came from in the first place, is that only his ugly, stupid, punchable face is the reason that he's not drafted higher by both fantasy gamers and NFL GMs alike. And he proved it again by being very, very efficient. And I'm just really saying I think he might be good. Now, all that to say, it was against fifth stringers. I mean, so yes, grain of fucking salt. I mean, a gigantic grain of salt. But it's not about whether or not that was a signal that he's really awesome or not. It's just he passed the test, and now we get to see more inflation of value.
Yeah. And I mean, anybody who hates a semi-sarcastic victory lap after something hilarious in the preseason or training camp just doesn't like fun. You just don't like fun.
Right.
You need to get laid.
That's what Twitter's about. Sure. And here it's more about, like, I would say if you're, you guys can hop off this, but like if you're a non-believer in Carson Beck, this is a small sell window. I'm not so sure his value skyrocketed from this, but it definitely went up. And so, the guy asked me on Twitter, have you been able to sell him for a 27-second? Because I kind of posited that was possible. And I was like, no, but I'm also not looking to do that necessarily. So I haven't really tried. But then I checked, shameless plug, OTC FFB trade database and found that Carson Beck for 27-second was the most popular trade for Carson Beck post his performance the other night. So that is a trade that's available to many gamers. Maybe not in my league, pal, but maybe in other leagues, sir.
One of them happened 22 hours ago, in fact. One of those trades happened. So
absolutely.
Joe,
I want to be clear. What I was referencing was just, I think in the process, Trav had him ranked the highest. And I think when we did a mock draft, Trav took him the highest. And I was questioning the validity of that and saying he should be end of the second round, not middle or early part of the second round. So that's why I attributed the credit to Trav. Jax, I know you were on him as well. I did manage to get a few measly shares, but not enough. And let this just be a lesson. And of course, we don't even know if this guy's good yet. We could be completely jumping the gun. But with Shuck last year, I faded that. With Beck this year, I pretty much faded that. I got a little Beck, just like to protect against what happened with Shuck last year. like we maybe need to start taking these second round quarterbacks a little bit more seriously and just, plug your nose. We said this about Knicks and it worked out great. Just plug your nose and take the prospects, even if you don't like them, because we're so bad at evaluating this position.
And not only second round from a rookie draft standpoint, but older prospects coming out, right?
Yeah.
Like Bo Nix had like 6 years of college experience. I think Shuck was the same. And I think it was 5 or 6 for Carson Beck as well. So, I mean, it's interesting because that's kind of the impetus of me saying, okay, I need to look at Carson Beck a lot more because I missed on that Tyler Shuck bet. And we were saying very early, Jax, like you said, that it's very similar to that Shuck bet. So we need to make sure that that stays in the back pocket. And we kept it there.
I'll throw a couple other guys out there. Brock Purdy was, an experienced player drafted late. You can go back to even Dak Prescott and Russell Wilson for guys who are not drafted in the first round. We can look at Kenny Pickett, who was drafted in the middle of the first round. And some people say, whoa, Kenny Pickett's not a hit. It's like, yeah, he was in year one, because if you sold at any point during or specifically after year one, when everybody there was a huge Pittsburgh hype going into Kenny Pickett year two. I got that year rookie pick, first round pick, for him. I don't remember what that was, 23 or 24, doesn't really matter. But I got a first rounder for him, subsequent when I was a non-Pickett believer essentially. But, so point of the matter is there's value in all those types of players that can sometimes turn value much, much higher, I think, especially of course in Superflex leagues than many other positions can, even if they hit.
Okay, so I got an action question for you guys as far as Carson Beck and what gamers should be doing right now. So we've established that you could probably go out there and you could probably net yourself a 27-second out of Carson Beck right now.
It's about the ceiling, right? I think.
Is there a world, though? Is there a world where he comes in and maybe does this in a couple of NFL games and people seeing that he does have 2 young wide receivers in Marvin Harrison, Michael Wilson, and has a Trey McBride tight end and Jeremiah Love? If there's inklings after a couple of good performances that he could be a long-term starter, do you think there's a world where even maybe adding a touch to Carson Beck gets you that 27 first?
Yes.
And what I'm basically asking is, would the risk in waiting that long and him maybe having bad games, would you take on that risk for the potential to get that higher pick out of Carson Beck? Or would you take that second now?
You can answer, Joe.
Well, I mean, listen, you can't go broke taking a profit, right? So if you can get the second now, it's very tempting. But if you need quarterback help, or the places I have them, I usually have Brissett as well. And I was just like, all right, let me handle my QB3 very cheaply with Brissett, and I'll get Beck, and hopefully, I can piece together a full season out of these guys. Should I need to break glass and start this guy if one of my 2 main starters goes down, right? That was the thought process that I got there with. I wish I had been a little bit more aggressive, but yes, I think you can take the second now. If he gets starts, I don't even think he'd have to fall flat on his face, and it'd have to be a foregone conclusion that the Cardinals are taking the Cardinals are taking a quarterback in the early part of the draft. Like if they're last place and teed up to take Arch Manning or something like that, then the market's not going to buy into it until they don't take a quarterback in the draft. So in season is probably where you may be able to get that first. It's, I could go either way on this, but generally, I would take the profit if you're looking to move off of them.
Yeah. And it's a little bit of belief, right? Whether or not you believe in him or not. I mean, if you're a believer and you think he's really good and he's going to be a starter and you're like, I don't really need to sell a starter for a 27-second. Okay. Don't do that. I would say, though, that if I could, I would absolutely sell for a 27-second right now, because I don't think Carson Beck is winning you anything this year, and it's going to be a volatile asset. Yes, maybe he's really successful and he spikes and you're able to get a future first for him, but there's also the possibility that crashes and burns and you miss a window, and then they do kind of do the thing that Joe's talking about, where all signs point to 27 quarterback, which, by the way, also, if you just want to do an exercise for yourself, go ahead and try and look at Mock Draft Database or a site like that, and just go look at the incredible numbers of quarterbacks that will be going in the 27 draft. There's 5 blue chippers. There's 10 that could be first or second round picks in the real NFL draft. It's going to be bonkers. And that means that they're going to spill into that said second round. And you'll probably be able to get a better quarterback straight up than Carson Beck in that 27 second. So, yeah, I think it's definitely worth it.
That's nice. That's a nice little way to wrap that, my man. Okay. Another thing that just went down this past week, boys, Stefon Diggs signed a 1-year, $12 million deal with the Commanders, already practicing with them, already making a couple of catches with them. And he's actually a DMV area native, boys. So he's kind of got a little homecoming on his hands. No matter where he goes, hide your wives, hide your girlfriends, hide your sisters, hide them all, because Stefon Diggs is in town. But we're not talking about, you know, his foray into the social scene. We're talking about his foray into the wide receiver room of the Washington Commanders. And it's an interesting fit too, because I see him and Terry being able to do a lot of things down the field similarly. And I think that's a boost for Jayden Daniels. But Joe, as the resident Terry McLaurin truther, what was your first reaction on how Diggs impacts Terry Mack?
I am going to do the galaxy brain thing where I actually think that it's good for McLaurin. And sure, his targets may come down, and, Diggs got 1,000 yards last year running half the routes in New England, right? Like, he had a good season. He's a target earner, but like, Washington was so desperate for another pass catcher that I think the argument that you have to go to is that this is going to help sustain drives, give Jayden Daniels an easy outlet to just keep the chains moving. Like, they do very different things on the field. And McLaurin is, a non-traditional X receiver who's still really fast and wins on the boundary. And like, he can still do all of that stuff. So there's not that much overlap in terms of like the targets that they're going to command. And this is, a void that desperately needed filling in Washington. So I think it's better overall for the offense and therefore better for McLaurin. But, no doubt, I mean, Diggs is going to draw a 20%, target per route run number. I think pretty, that's fairly likely at this point.
Yeah. And I actually think that Diggs does kind of draw some of that intermediate stuff away that Terry could get to realize some ultimate ceiling, but we want deep touchdowns for Terry, basically. Another big note, Jax, before you give your thoughts on it as well, is that Laramie Tunsil went down today with a torn tricep and is probably going to miss a significant portion of the season. So I can't remember who tweeted it, but somebody said that losing Laramie Tunsil is more detrimental to the Commanders than adding Stefon Diggs was beneficial. And I think that's absolutely true when you consider the mobile quarterback and, what they have in that running back room. But Jax, stick with those wide receivers and kind of Jayden Daniels' impact here.
Antonio Williams, it's good to know you.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. It really was a pleasure not drafting you in all 24
season lasted 2 months?
0 shares, 0 cares. Antonio Williams.
Amen.
Never knew you. Look, he might be all right. I'm sorry. I didn't want to hurt all the Antonio Williams truthers.
He had a good clip today. Actually.
Fine, guys. Yeah, he's going to out-target fucking Terry McLaurin and Steph Diggs. It's going to be fine. Don't worry. Everything's going to be fine.
Maybe next year.
There's next year. You could be maybe next year.
Yeah. But Diggs last year, just real quick, I'm just going back to stats. Yeah. Over 2.08 yards per route run and 0.22 targets per route run. So those are solid numbers. He's going to get his. Terry's going to there's still plenty of room for Terry to get his. And it's just like, all right, what are the leftovers going to be for your Chigs and your Antonio Williamses, right?
Yeah. To your point also, Joe, like Chig is just dead. And I was kind of curious about his targets anyway, because now he's definitely only really getting underneath stuff, which is all he was really suited for anyway. And I think that bleeds into what we were expecting from Rachaad White out of this Washington offense. So I think the Diggs move is good for Jayden Daniels for sure. Him and McLaurin are going to be fine. And we're not really looking too much at Chig, but I personally wasn't really looking at him previous to that. Training camp buzz, fellas. There was one that happened today that almost sent the entire fantasy world into shambles. Luther Burden got banged up. The report that I said that he was favoring his left leg and groin. Joe, you said that you watched the clip and that you were hoping that at worst it's like a calf strain. But we are collectively holding our breaths a little bit until we, hear some more reports and then see him back out on that practice field. Is this noise or noteworthy, Jax?
Well, we have no idea, because by the time this comes out, this is going to be known if it's a big deal or not.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, really, like,
you're right.
we're recording this on Saturday night. Is that what this is? Yeah. I'm coming back from vacation. I don't even know what day it is. But yeah, Saturday night, when it just happened earlier today, and there's no news as to, it's fine or it's fucked. We don't know. Fine or fucked sounds like a good segment on a Dynasty podcast. We can just do that.
Yeah. That sounds like an underground segment if there ever was one.
I think we just named one.
Yeah,
and then I'd put the quack over top of it. Fine or quack.
Yeah, exactly. 100 Michael Mayer sized. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, if he's hurt, it's big news. It's I can't even begin to prognosticate if we don't know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it would obviously be a big uptick for my guy Rome, but Joe, that depth is sparse behind those two, with Khalif Raymond being the next man up, and then I don't even know who. So what's your thoughts, Joe?
I think they would just run like a base 13 personnel package with Sam Roush. And Cole Kmet out there. I think that like genuinely would probably become a very big part of their game plan. Or Keenan Allen would make his return to Chicago. That's another possibility. He has not yet landed, probably waiting for the right opportunity. We know he liked his deep dish in Chicago, so it could definitely end up back there.
Nice.
That being said, these are hypotheticals right now. Can we just pray for my 43+% ownership of Luther Burden? Because one of my highest rostered players, have been bullish on this guy since he was like a sophomore. Acquired him everywhere I could. So I don't know, guys. I can't be rational about this one.
Yeah.
I was starting to get the sense the hype was getting so out of control. The propaganda was everywhere that I was like just getting worried. I was like, something's going to happen to this guy. Like there's I was just in Greece. We have superstition there, like the evil eye, right? It's like when people are saying too many good things about somebody, something bad's going to happen to them. Like that's like a superstition there. And I don't really believe that stuff, but it was getting so out of control with Burden that it was actually crossing my mind. And sure enough, we get this today. God, I hope it's a calf strain.
Yeah, I agree.
To quote a famous man, I'm not superstitious, but a little stitious.
That's good. Yeah, Joe, I just checked and I'm at 27% Burden myself, and so I am praying for that. While I am the Roma Dunze guy, I am still a big fan of one Luther Burden, so it's going to be interesting to watch. He should be back hopefully and in there. So, but obviously by the time the show is out, we maybe know, and so maybe we're rejoicing by that time anyway. So another landing spot that could be for Mr. Keenan Allen, and a place where a wide receiver got a little bit banged up today, was Indianapolis, where Josh Downs went down, groin injury, his first missed practice of training camp. Sparse depth chart there as well, with Alec Pierce still not having practiced as of yet. So Josh Downs going down. Like you talked about Chicago, to me, I was going to kind of bring this in here saying, is this more likely that Keenan Allen signs now? And then how concerned, Joe, would you be for Josh Downs as of this point?
I'd be pretty devastated, honestly, because right now it's lining up for them to play a bunch of 12 personnel and just have Josh Downs doing more than just the slot work that we've kind of seen him limited to over these first few years. I think we all know that he's better than that, on a per route run basis, on an efficiency basis. Like he's just been a great player, and we've just been waiting for like the opportunity to line up. And with Pittman gone, I think Alec Pierce is still going to continue to do most of the same stuff that he did. He showed a little bit more last year, so it's probably going to be like a void filled by both of them. But if you throw Keenan Allen into the mix, then that short area, quick hitter stuff. I mean, like Keenan Allen nuked Ladd McConkey last year, right? He could absolutely nuke Josh Downs as well. That guy is, one of the all-time greats at earning targets and, just being a quarterback's best friend. So it would not be a good thing at all for Downs, or really like anybody. I think like the real answer here though is, with Downs, whatever. I don't think this one's that serious, but Tyler Warren probably is looking like a very, very good option. I don't think he's like moved in, he's not moving into the tier one. But I think he's like very, very firmly in, either the 4 or 5 spot.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that as far as why he isn't in that tier 1, right? His volume outlook looks as good as any guy that's not named Trey McBride or Brock Bowers, I would say. I even think his volume outlook kind of looks better than Colston Loveland, because my analysis on Loveland is high efficiency and big plays, not that he's going to get like 140 targets in that Bears offense, right? So I think Loveland is going to be in that 110 to 130 range, but I think Tyler Warren could be in that 140 plus range. And so what do you think the separator is, Jax, that Tyler Warren doesn't necessarily make it into that range? Is it just the offensive skill, like the offense and the play caller for Loveland, or what else is the gap there?
Actually, Tyler Warren is right there. I was looking at this offense because I was talking to Greg Branos about Josh Downs, because I was kind of curious. The big question is whether or not Josh Downs can play outside and inside, right? And I didn't even really have to ask Greg, and he kind of was, answering the question, the unasked question that way was, hey, they were saying he can play outside. They're saying he's an inside-outside player. Which is great. So then obviously that returns value on Downs. To the question on Tyler Warren, I think it comes back, he could very well be the number 1 target on that team. And so that gives him tight end 1 overall upside for sure. He's not quite the special player and athlete and downfield circus catch, go up and get it player. But does he need to be? I don't think so. I don't think he needs all of that. He just does need, a tremendous amount of volume, and he's a really good football player, right? So, break tackle, just fast enough. I mean, he's just a really good player. I really like Tyler Warren. I think at this particular point, you really have to look at him as your tight end 4 in Dynasty almost kind of clearly. I think then Harold Fannin, they really like Harold Fannin as well in Cleveland. So both of those guys have tight end 1 overall upside. They just do. Will they get there? Probably not. I mean, you still have to clear, McBride and Bowers for crying out loud. And as you point out, Loveland, who I happen to like better, but I don't think it's by that much. I think both of these guys can make a claim that they should be valued over Trey McBride in Dynasty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's like when you watch Loveland, he looks like a wide receiver out there, right? He's just super smooth. Whereas Warren is kind of like the smash mouth, traditional tight end. But like he had a top 5 all-time rookie season by a tight end last year.
Right.
He had 800 yards. He was at over 1.6 yards per out run, over 21% target per out run. Like that's impressive stuff on what we think will be a decent offense if they can pick up that early season pace last year. And if Daniel Jones is truly okay, and he's certainly going to be one of the top, 3 options in this passing game, but it's going to be so consolidated so long as Keenan doesn't sign there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and all reports look like Daniel Jones has been a full go in camp, so that is looking good for these guys. And I am keeping Loveland above in Dynasty, but I'm going to rethink my my redraft ranking. I mentioned at the top of the show, boys, that 2026 rankings are out on the site for myself and Frank Camaranti. I actually had Tyler Warren at 5 behind Tucker Kraft. I'm going to bring him up to number 4 for 2026. And I might even think about putting him over Loveland for just the 2026 season, while I won't do that for Dynasty. So interesting conversation there, guys. And to your point, it sounds like Josh Downs is definitely playing in those 2 wide sets. A little bit different than another guy who we hope plays in those 2 wide sets, boys. And this one is a little bit of a deviation off the show sheet, but actually we were talking about it on Twitter, and we actually have Matthew Golden's team in there. But let's talk about the Packers wide receiver rotation, because I felt like Josh Downs was a clean segue into some of that Packers stuff. So Jayden Reed and Matthew Golden, we're not necessarily thinking about like Christian Watson in the rotation there, but we have talked about how we want Jayden Reed to get more 2 wide sets. All of the buzz that's happening is coming out saying that Matthew Golden looks really good in this Packers offense. So, Joe, what are you thinking? We did have it actually on the sheet to talk about with Jacob, but we didn't get there because we went into a lot of stuff. So why don't we talk about this Packers ambiguous wide receiver room?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the most pressing questions of this offseason, because the Packers have been like a nightmare for fantasy players for, several years now with their never-ending rotation of wide receivers. With Wicks out of the pictures, with Wicks out of the picture and Dobbs gone as well, like now we can consolidate these targets. I think Kraft is, the probably the right answer here, as he was last year in Green Bay. But with these other receivers gone, it's gonna be probably most often 2 wide receiver sets, or Reed coming out of the slot. It looks like Golden is going to be the guy in the 2 wide receiver sets. I've seen speculation that actually Watson is going to be the flanker and Golden is going to be the X. So that's a bummer, because for those of us who have been Jayden Reed stans, we want to see him get an expanded opportunity. And it seems like he has all the tools to do that. I think they've got like a team-wide interest in not looking bad on their first round pick from last year, the first time they took a receiver. But when the rubber meets the road, he's still got to be able to play, and he's still got to be able to get open. And I think like he shows very high separation scores when you look at him and the advanced stats. But I think the problem with him is like where he's getting open, and is it a timing thing? Is he improving out there? What's happening? Because the separation scores are not matching the targets. Is Love just missing them? I don't think so. So something doesn't quite line up with him. Could he have made the leap? Sure. But we never really thought that he lived up to this first round billing. Another guy out of Texas with like a very limited late season surge coming out of college that like pumped him up to the first round. Do you guys remember what his model score was? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I've got it. It was 64.9.
Yeah. So like below the 50-50 range, basically.
Yes.
Not to say that it couldn't happen, but with the draft capital, team incentive, and his college sort of story, if you will, it's not unfathomable that he does become the guy. I just really personally hope it's Reed, because he's a player I've been a fan of since he came into the league, and want to see him in an expanded role.
Even Jayden Reed was a 66.5. So, I mean, they're both in the same bucket. I mean, we don't hate Matthew Golden. We certainly did not like him as a first-round NFL pick and as a first-round rookie pick. But Jordan Love was the one who was quoted as saying, "We've got Matthew Golden locked in at X out there, man." That was his sort of thing. He said that, we're looking good, man. We got MG locked in at the X out there. He was excited to say, and gave us the sort of spilled the beans moment where it's like, oh, wait, he's locked in at X? Yeesh. That's not good for him. For the rest of us, I think it is good, because I do think that means Christian Watson can actually, who I think is better than Matthew Golden. I don't even think that's a hot take. So he'll be moving around more, and Jayden Reed, who's better-ish, I guess, better for what we want him to be, run after catch, short line of scrimmage stuff, slot stuff, reverses, jet sweeps. Let's go Jayden Reed, right? So we get Jayden Reed stuff, and then we have Tucker Kraft. I think it's too crowded with good players at more highly targeted positions than the X and Matthew Golden for me to ever get excited about Matthew Golden here. Obviously, injuries can happen, things can change, and who knows? He could kind of get there, but I think it'd be a back door for him to get there. I don't think he's getting through the front door on this deal where everybody stays healthy, everything's clicking, and he's the guy. I don't see that.
Yeah, no, he definitely is at, if everyone's healthy, he's at best the third fiddle behind Watson and Tucker Kraft, right?
Yeah.
And maybe the fourth fiddle behind those two guys, and a run heavy approach by LaFleur too, right? So I think
there's a backdoor Golden
it's
joke
it's a narrow run out. Yeah, it's a narrow run out. Yeah, the backdoor golden shower or something.
Maybe. I don't
know. Yeah, Joe, that whole like Golden playing X is kind of like devastating, right? Because if Watson is playing the X, then we can foresee a scenario where Jayden Reed beats out Golden for that flanker role. But Jayden Reed's not beating out Watson if Watson's playing in the flanker role, and Jayden Reed's also not going in to play that X opposite of Watson. And so it's interesting because early in the camp, we saw that they were trying out Jayden Reed in those two wide sets. But like you said, it would behoove them to get the most that they can out of Golden. And I'm not sure I agree that Golden is better elsewhere other than the X, because that separation that he gets and stuff, I think like he's probably better for their offense in that X role because he's clearing shit out. And I think honestly, that's his best way to stay on the field is if he can adequately occupy that, because I think he might be able to be exposed in other positions. So I actually think that might be a good thing for Matthew Golden, not to get targets, but for his ability to stay on the field, which of course makes him more eligible for targets than if he's not on the field, I guess. And
Very much so.
Yeah, that's kind of the rose-colored glasses on Matthew Golden. Kind of sucks for Jayden Reed, but we're still holding out hope. Oh man, the Jaguars are just buzzy all around.
Yes,
hey fellas. Like it is crazy. We're going to start with the running backs and we're just going to go right into the wide receivers because we're not going to divvy up the team across the show sheet necessarily. But Jaguars committee backfield potentially incoming ? There was a tweet by one of the beat reporters that said Bhayshul Tuten is kind of like the lead carrier getting the first crack at carries, Chris Rodriguez being the goal line guy. And I remember in the tweet that it said LaQuint Allen was playing on every third down. And so what's the sort of panic meter for Bhayshul Tuten if that is in fact the case? I know we all know injuries happen and things fluctuate throughout the season, so it's not like that's going to be the case for 17 games guaranteed. But Jax, where do you lie on kind of the Tuten excitement scale? Because I know all three of us were definitely pretty high on that scale previous.
Well, not to step all over your next question and my podcast with Greg Branos, the Undrafted, which you should go check out, but I kind of made a heel toe here a little bit. I'm a little nervous. I'm not necessarily nervous that Chris Rodriguez will like come in and be some alpha. I'm just nervous that they're going to look at this backfield, the coaching staff that is, as sort of a fork, knife, spoon, where they kind of say, oh, let's use this one here and use this one here. And, oh, look, a soup. Let's grab that spoon. And, you know, they're going to really have utilities that they all have. And neither of any three of them is going to actually kind of get there where we want them to, you know. And so I'm a little nervous that it's going to be a bit of that unless or until someone steps forward, which, again, that only one person can step forward, really. And it's Bhayshul Tuten, who could possibly be like, no, boys, 80-yard touchdown. Look at that. Fucking see that? I'm the guy. You know, he can
caught
do
a couple balls, boys.
Right? Like he can make a catch, make a guy miss, and go for 70-yard reception. Touchdown, boys. You see that shit? Like he can do that. The other guys are great players, you know, football players, but they're not electric, prolific, you know, waiting to happen. So I think there's something to the upside of Bhayshul Tuten. I just think there's still definitely downside. Joe, are you still feeling that, or are you just kind of letting it rip with Bhayshul still?
I mean, I'm still letting it rip. There are some places where I've added LaQuint Allen and or Chris Rodriguez just as like a de facto handcuff in case of injury, but that's really the way I'm playing it. I think this is just a mid-curve meme situation in my mind where it's just like the dumb guy and, you know, the Jedi on the other side are like Bhayshul Tuten in the ETN role, right? Yeah. And like that's what it is, right? Last year, Tuten was the goal line back, right? That's Chris Rodriguez is going to do. That's fine. That's whatever, right? But Tuten in the ETN role is kind of the way this looks to me. And ETN, although he wasn't whatever the third down back, was still catching plenty of passes and still ripping off big plays with one of the best run designers, you know, in the league as a play caller. So I'm not terribly concerned about it. No. It did look rosier 2 weeks ago, but you know, no running back, like very few aside from CMC is getting, you know, 100% of the work. No one's getting all of it, right? We want dudes that are going to make big plays, make splash plays, and that's how you're going to have like impactful weeks in your lineup. So the thesis has never changed on Bhayshul Tuten. He's an explosive running back that's pretty good at catching passes and can rip off 80-yard gains. And so, you know, he's now, in my opinion, still in the pole position to get the lion's share of the opportunities in this 2 to 3 way committee.
Joey kind of strikes me as like the Rachaad White situation where, you know, we weren't like, look, Rachaad White is the best running back there ever was. It was like, no, it's like he's fast. He plays in a good offense. And I think they're going to throw passes to him. Like, I like that, and maybe Bhayshul, I actually think that he's almost certainly a better navigator of the offensive line, of the line of scrimmage than Rachaad White was. So I'm not comparing them one for one, but to some degree, it's the same story. It's like explosive guy, good offense, not much competition. And, that's where we're at. I mean, I don't think either one of us thinks that Bhayshul is like a top 5 or 10 talent in the NFL at the running back position. That doesn't make much sense, but I do think he's very talented and very explosive. And if he's just, I said it with Greg, his success rate was like 58 or 59% last year. Success rate on rushes only. That's the same success rate that Chris Rodriguez has had last year and for his career, which is actually a very good number. Like, you look at a lot of these backs, like usually 50% is a good number. So getting well above that, close to 60% by both these guys is very good. So I do think that Bhayshul showed, down to down utility, which is what he needs to continue to do. Because if they stop trusting him, right, that's when it all goes bad. That's when he's on the sideline. And you're like, dude, what the fuck? They're running Chris Rodriguez for 3 yards at a time. Why isn't Bhayshul in there? And it's not because he's slow all of a sudden or something. It's because they've lost that down to down trust.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I almost think of it, though. It's funny that you brought up Rachaad White, because I actually think that he's the Bucky Irving in this situation. Like, let's say Bucky Irving rookie year. I think he's the Bucky Irving in this situation. And like Allen and Rodriguez combined for this Rachaad White Frankenstein.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I don't even know if
play caller too, which is why I draw the corollary there. By the way,
for sure. And to your point, Jax, about Bhayshul not being like the huge talent or the best talent we have at running back, like a lot of his value is tied to his play caller, right? And that for me is something I trust, right? His play caller knows how to use weaponry, and Bhayshul Tuten, much like what's in Travion Henderson's pants, is a weapon. You know what I mean? So, I just trust in Liam Cohen. Like, people talk about Bhayshul Tuten's inability to catch the ball too. Like, sure, he's had some issues, but I also could trust Liam Cohen to get 30 receptions in his hands in an easy fashion as well, right? Which only builds to the upside that could be Bhayshul Tuten.
Speaking of weapons, by the way, I flew on a plane recently, here and hither and thither, or whatever the fuck the words are. I was all over the place in these planes. And in a plane, you tend to watch these movies because, what else are you going to do? I mean, you could sit there and read or something. Lord knows I don't read. So I'm watching these movies, right? I watched Weapons. Do you know which one this is? You seen this?
No, sir.
You know anything about this movie? It's Ruth from
is it a porn?
Ozarks. No. It's not that kind of weapon. Get your mind out of the gutter.
Sounds like it. Wow.
You guys know Ruth from Ozark?
Yeah, she's good.
Yeah, you don't know.
Didn't watch it.
Blonde curly hair girl,
Ozark?
right? It's a good show. It's a good show,
bro. Joe, Quaid,
it's intense, Joe.
100%.
I don't watch shows, and it's good.
Yeah. Jason Bateman, you'd love Jason Bateman in this whole thing.
It's really good.
It's really good. Anyway, Ruth is something, man. She's a firecracker in this movie, in the show, right? Well, she's the star of this movie, Weapons, and man, this shit was freaky. And you know what's crazy? I was watching. There's like not murders, but like it's like supernatural. But there's like some weird fucking shit that happens, and I got the headphones on, and I've got it blaring because fuck the world, right? I can hear it. Nobody's gonna hear it. My wife later told me, she goes, I could hear you fucking, but But anyway, I'm sitting there, and so I'm like, a couple edibles. I'm like in my own world watching this thing, and I'm like right there, and then I like look around. I was like, there's people seeing like just beheadings and like just complete gore and blood, and it sounds to me like the world is really doing all this stuff, and it's not, of course. So I had to like pause it and fucking take a breather. You know what I mean? Like on the plane, I'm getting a little worked up, but yeah, it was a pretty cool movie. Weapons. There you go. You got one.
Yeah, you got your headphones in, and you're just beside some old lady. You're like, oh shit.
yeah. So I'll tell a story on air here while we're here. So we were flying, and we got canceled. All this shit that happens when you're trying to travel. So we got canceled. So we had to like rebook all the shit. When we were rebooked, one of the legs of the flight that we rebooked, all four of us, I have myself, my wife, my two kids, all sitting separately, which not optimal for 4 hours on a plane. Not optimal.
Family, not great. Okay. But our kids are awesome. My kids are sweet. They're really good. I'm not worried about them. They know what the fuck's going on. They're chill. So they're going to be fine. However, my 10-year-old boy,
the heir to the throne. He was sat next to the stone worst traveler on this plane. He's got this dude who's like a straight up, like he's wearing like a hood and like a he's got like headphones and he stinks like weed like crazy. And the whole time he was like singing out loud like the shit that's on his right next to my son, like fucking like rapping next to my kid's like the whole time sat next to the stone worst guy.
That was me.
Oh no, dude, it was bad.
Smelled like weed. He was rapping. No. He had his headphones on.
No, it was like one of those things. My son is cool. Like if it was the guy who was cool at all, he'd have been like, "What's up, player?" You know what I mean?
Was this inside of you? Could you see this happening?
I could not. I was way up front.
I just told you about it afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Poor kid.
Oh man.
Yeah, he had a bad 4-hour flight, which is terrible. Really, I felt terrible for him. So anyway.
I mean, I've been flying, and I felt like we were the terrible people to be next to because we had a baby, especially on the way there. That was like, there was about a 20-minute stretch where he wasn't upset. He was just playing with his voice, right? And he was just screaming super high pitched.
Right.
Just sitting there, just like looking around. I'm just like, I'm so sorry. I'm just trying to shush him. And he's just like, he's not upset. He's literally just having fun screaming. And I'm just like, God, please stop.
Joe, you know how when that happens, like the people around you are awesome. Right?
Yeah, they were
like the people are amazing. Like, and that's the thing that gets you. You're like, oh my God, these people are amazing. So we were traveling once with my son and of course my daughter, but my son was probably maybe a little older than your son. So he's kind of big. He's like 1 or 2. He's big, but he was sound asleep. And so we get on this connector and I sit down and I just have him on my body, my lap basically. And I'm just holding him. And so of course his head is like in the aisle and his feet are on the armrest or whatever. Like I've just got him right there. And I'm like, oh, sleeping. I'm holding him. And the people around us are so nice. The guy sitting next to me at one point says something like, if he needs a seat, maybe you should have him sit down somewhere. And I'm like, huh? Like it totally caught me out. I was like, the fuck did you just say to me, player? You know what I mean? And like, so you could kind of tell that the other people were like, oh shit, like this motherfucker. You know what I mean? There was one of those numbers. And I almost, just gave him one stiff elbow till he went to nanites. But I was like, I was a really good person. I didn't say anything. I said, sir, it would be a lot worse if I wake him. Like he's a fucking sack of potatoes. What's your problem? But like, yeah, he was complaining
unreal,
like the worst person on the planet. And so I did a really good for me job by not being like, listen, you're a piece of shit. I probably said something along the way, like, you better shut your mouth, whatever. But like all the like moms and like people who sat right behind us, like came up to the guy. I was like, what is wrong with you? Like, he was so good. They're like, you did really good, and the whole thing. But can you imagine, so yeah, that happened.
I actually do have a similar story, but we're going to save it for off air because we got to get back on track here. I'm going to do Trav drop.
This may be off air too. This may be off air. You never know what happens.
There's a chance. We'll see. Sometimes it just flows to keep it in. You never know.
You'll see.
But boys, we got to talk about the wide receivers in Jacksonville because they're probably harder to figure out than the running back room, right? And Parker Washington is getting all of the steam right now, rightfully so. He had a great stretch down the stretch last season. Brian Thomas Jr. apparently looks really good as well. And then we know Jacoby Myers is just old trusty. Jax, why don't I throw it to you? Because
Joe, don't forget about Travis Hunter. Don't forget about Travis Hunter.
Travis, he who you said his name, that's fucked. He who shall not be named actually is what we call him around these parts, Joe. That's crazy. I'm gonna have to bleep that. And so Jax, what are you making of this wide receiver group? Because Joe and I talked quite a bit about them with Jacob on the previous episode. So I want to hear what you're making of this group.
I'm terrified of everything. I hate this room. I hate everything about this. Like, look, I want the rooms that are easy to handicap. And so I feel like I'm super smart just because it was an easy test. Like, give me the easy test. This one's not easy. And for those reasons, I don't really like it. I certainly don't like overpaying for Parker Washington. That doesn't feel, especially, we're talking, this is a Dynasty show. That doesn't feel like the smart move in Dynasty. I just don't like it. I'm not in. So it's not that I don't think that Parker Washington might be the best. It's possible. He could be the best wide receiver in Jacksonville this year. That's in play for sure. It's also in play that he returns to the playing level of Parker Washington. And if that were to happen and you get Parker Washington from before his hot streak, you're hating life. And you're right. Travis Hunter could play a little bit more than we'd like to see. Brian Thomas Jr. is a high first round pick, who is supposed to be good, I guess. Like we thought he was good. He should be good. Jakobi Meyers is specifically good in the NFL, especially at just being, he's a doubles hitter, right? He's just an on-base percentage guy, right? He's just that type of player. So I think when you have all that going around you, there's not too much at the tight end room. A little strange there for you, Joe. But even there,
strange.
Hey, Borkircher.
I'm more of a Borkircher guy, actually.
Right.
I'd like to get myself a piece of Borkircher tonight. Thank you very much.
Right, exactly. But yeah, I just think that the wide receiver room is a little bit too difficult for me to upspend. So I'm gonna just put my chip, as it always seems to be, on Jakobi Meyers, which is the free square here, and they'll probably get 100 to 120 targets and be, a wide receiver 3 or something, and that's what it's going to be. I don't know. I don't see much ceiling. What about you, Joe?
Well, I have been finding myself being more and more drawn to Parker Washington. You guys know I'm a BTJ guy. I was skeptical of Travis Hunter. We've always been Jakobi Meyers guys. I will say Jacob Sanderson did a pretty darn good job convincing me when we recorded with him why this is most likely Parker Washington. It has everything to do with like Trevor Lawrence tendencies, and
true that.
Like this is why Mac Jones and BTJ didn't work so well together, but Trevor Lawrence and BTJ don't work all that well together. So I think like BTJ's role is super important for the offense. I think that the team is incentivized more to get both Travis Hunter and their young player in Parker Washington involved than they are in Jakobi Meyers, who they paid. And like he serves as like this very reliable source of targets and play time. But he's not like as explosive as these other guys, and not like the best version of this offense isn't featuring Jakobi Meyers. He's like the in case of emergency break glass and use this guy as your, the guy you funnel your offense through. So that's kind of why I'm just leaning Parker Washington. All reports out of camp seem to be saying that like in 12 personnel, it's going to be Parker Washington on the field. In 13 personnel, it's going to be Parker Washington on the field. Just and you can't unsee what we saw last year, right? Especially down the stretch. But, he, cleared 2.19 yards per route run, 22% targets per route run on a 13.2 ADOT for a guy that, we kind of think of as like a slot player, but no, he can play all of these positions. He's maybe not like the true X. And that's why I'm saying Thomas's job is probably safe and his role is probably safe, but for fantasy production, seems like Parker Washington's like the most likely to get points. And yeah, you know what? I'm not giving up on Strange. I actually think he's really good.
Yeah, I think the passing offense is one that you want pieces of. So I don't hate on anybody for investing at reasonable cost in any of these options. I think the moral of the entire story is that the presence of all three of those guys lowers the upside of all three of those guys, right?
Yeah.
I think the thing to note about Jakobi Meyers, I looked up the contract before the show, and they can get out of it pretty scot-free with post June 1, 2027. So he could be gone as early as after next year. And Parker Washington is in a contract year. So they're going to have to make some decisions there in a position that they've invested so heavily in with those two high picks in BTJ and Hunter. And Jax, you mentioned that it just doesn't feel right to invest heavily into Parker Washington. I put out a tweet just showing how much of an outlier that he would be. So since 2006, there are only 4 wide receivers who have been drafted from rounds 5 through 7 and had more than 12 fantasy points per game in their 4th year or later. So basically, like, he's going into his 4th year. And if we expect 12 fantasy points, he has to be in the same echelon as Antonio Brown, Stefon Diggs, Julian Edelman, and Tyreek Hill. So a very hard thing to do what the fantasy community is expecting Parker Washington to do. That's why I can't confidently take that bet.
The thing about it is that he was like almost 23% target rate last year. Like he was really good, right? But in his first two, and look, that was on 436 routes. Whatever, that's great.
Yeah. 50% in the slot. Yeah.
Yeah. But what I'm getting at is in his first two seasons, he was 12.5% target rate. Now, that's not target share. Like, oh, he didn't play. It's like on the routes he ran, he was not targeted. Similar quarterback play for those 2 years, with Trevor Lawrence. I know that Mac Jones played some that, unlocked BTJ. I get it all. But ultimately what I'm getting at is we expect 23% target rate from Parker Washington with everybody healthy next year. Wow. Okay. If you say so, but that's kind of what has to happen at his current price. Like it's one thing if I don't hate players that hate ADPs. If he were a little bit cheaper, I'd be like, yeah, sounds like a really good upside play. Where he's at, he kind of has to hit all kinds of benchmarks to get there.
But isn't that what he just did? Right? He just did that. It's not like they added anybody to that receiver room. Travis Hunter got hurt, but it's still the same cast of characters, right? And just maybe a little bit more Travis Hunter.
I think BTJ was injured for a portion of that, and I just think that it's a small sample too. I think it's not necessarily that we didn't see him do it. It's that you invest in these guys year over year, and it's not like he's a high pedigree player, you know what I mean, where we're reinvesting off of a dip, you know what I mean? We're investing in a low pedigree player off of a small sample spike, you know what I mean? And so that's where the trepidation, I think, is. I acknowledge everything that you did. You mentioned 2-point-something yards per route run for the season. I think over that last 5-game stretch, he was at 3.78. So I'm pretty sure it was astronomical stuff, but not saying it was just a perfect storm because he's really good, but I just think it's sketchy waters for me to wade into with confidence.
They all are, though. This is just why I'm queasy about the whole situation. It's how Jack started the conversation, right? It's I kind of want to stay away from all of it.
And that's why my confidence has waned on BTJ. It hasn't necessarily caused my confidence to spike on Parker Washington like some people have, is kind of how I would explain it.
I guess what I'm getting at is he played a full season. It was 88 targets and 847 yards. I don't know. I just don't know that we're necessarily at the point where we can say definitively that this is the next guy. Now, he definitely was that guy down the stretch and in the playoffs. He was actually really good in the playoff game as well. So, there's something to build off of, but I do think that water finds its level. And if his level is this high, fucking A, I missed it. I apologize.
Yeah. I should note that the stats I'm referencing include the playoffs as well.
I like looking at that sometimes too.
I mean, why wouldn't you use it, right? It's data and it's good data, right? The playoffs matter more, right? So totally. I like having it.
It's not. It's just not like a second nature thing, right? My instinct always is I only want regular season, which is kind of a funny thing that we do.
I think on efficiency stuff for receiving, it's really important, right? It's an important game. Did they wither away or did they shine more? And it skews in Parker Washington's favor quite a bit when you look at it through that lens as well.
Yep, I agree. I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think it shows that was important to that team down the stretch, right? I mean, it wasn't he was hot, but we got to go away from him once the rubber meets the road or whatever,
I think I might do a little bit of a study on some of those playoff, heavy playoff performers and maybe look at how they did the following year. I mean, I say this all the time, and then there's so many studies that I've half finished and that have just died, but
it's
that
tough
would be an
though,
interesting
Trav.
look.
It's a small sample. I mean, because it's only adding one game, and that game is 7 for 70. It's not, or 7 for 107. Sorry,
right? There's these guys who come out with playoff runs all the time that we see every year.
Colston, Loveland, and Luther Burden look a lot better when you add that the playoff games, right?
Yep,
totally. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to look at some of the past results for guys who have spiked like that, set some thresholds or something like that. But I digress, boys, because we got to get through a couple more of these things because, as we are customary to do, we like to chat ski on these guys. Let's look at these Browns rookie wide receivers, guys, because they're both getting positive reports in camp. Casey Concepcion, of course, the first rounder, and Denzel Boston, the second rounder. Concepcion missed, I think, a day or two earlier in camp, banged up, but he's back out there, and they're saying he looks fantastic after the catch. And then Denzel Boston, we actually talked about it with Jacob, Joe, saying that Denzel Boston is like the textbook he looks great in camp player because he's that big body wide receiver who kind of skies for balls. I think he is more than that, of course.
Me too. Me too. We were being gracious hosts. I was holding back a little bit if I'm being honest here. I think more of Boston than we may have let on that episode. But anyways,
totally. And I'm in on Boston too. I've been, especially in like the best ball. In best ball, I have at least 2 or 3 teams where I've taken both of those guys to stack them. So I'm investing where I can in these guys because I like the talent of the players. The big problem is the quarterback situation, of course, with Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders. I have some confidence that along with Harold Fannin, even with shitty quarterback, that talent can still eat. You know what I mean? We've seen it before where talents can make the most of what a shitty quarterback is getting them. It's hard to even know where to take this conversation because of the Browns environment. But Jax, what are your vibes as far as maybe the gap between Boston and Concepcion? I know you were a big fan of KC. Has that changed at all?
Yeah, I guess a little. I was a little unsure of both of them for various reasons, but the model really liked Denzel Boston, and we need to pay attention to that because the model usually is righter than we are about stuff, and we tend to learn our lesson from that.
Writer was great. Thank you for that.
But it's true, we tend to go, man, we should have fucking seen that, So I will say that part of the Denzel Boston evaluation is still in my mind, and look, it's very unknown. The one thing, be ready to be wrong, right? All the stuff, be ready to change, be Bayesian, because we don't know, like Denzel Boston could be AJ Green. He's not, but it comes out there, all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, this dude's unbelievable. He's like ripping it up. Nico Collins or something, where you're like, wow, this is incredible. He is clearly the wide receiver one. And Casey Concepcion is Elijah Moore. Or it's something other, right? You see what I'm saying? Like, we just don't know what it is until we see it happen. And so I'm open to both of these guys being good. I'm open to both of them being bad or either of them. I think that right now, if I were handicapping, it's much closer to 50-50 than it was before. I think Denzel Boston is going to prove to be a pretty good 1-2 turn pick in this rookie draft that just went by. And certainly those who took Jonah Coleman and Nick Singleton over him will rue that day, because I think Boston will have more staying power than both of those players.
I think that's probably right. In terms of like the two of them, why I'm so torn is, it does go back to the model as well. And the model like Boston so much more. And if you think about it, Boston couldn't have had more difficult target competition early in his college career, right? 3 guys that, got drafted early in the NFL draft on that national championship team, right? But he was actually good when he was playing alongside those guys and then continued to shine afterwards. So it's like everything about Boston says he's a good player. Concepcion's stats are better than Boston's, excluding that sophomore year. And that's why I think he got dinged in our model. And so we have to drape some context over that as well. I think if he had just like a baseline, like average quarterback play in that second year, he may have been the number 1 prospect in this year's model, but he didn't put up the numbers. And like, we just need to keep that in mind. So he landed in a zone where I think he could have easily been in like the next tier of wide receivers, the same tier as Boston. I guess the bottom line is like, I like both. The NFL liked them both. There's no reason to believe that, they both can't be good, but we need to temper expectations this year because the quarterback play is going to be so hard to, overcome, in my opinion. And that's kind of, I think we might have buying opportunities on those guys as the year goes on and going into next year because of how bad this offense is going to be. So
or maybe it won't be.
Maybe it won't be. Maybe it won't be. I tend to think it will. And the point I was going to make is Like, don't lose faith in them if it is just bad quarterback play, and look at it as a buying opportunity. Like, don't go crazy, but look at it as a buying opportunity, because I think they're both pretty good.
Even after, what was the little fella that got hurt there? It was a little guy, Dylan Gabriel. So yeah, Dylan Gabriel, after he got the little fella, I said,
the little lefty.
I get you with rubbas last week, and now little fellas. Was a little rubba that got hurt. But yeah, he, once Shedeur got in there, it felt like, oh my God, what a relief. And he was pretty bad. It wasn't like he was good. So I think there's, you know what I'm saying? So there's a possibility that Shedeur is better than he was last year. I would expect him to be. There's also a possibility, I hate to say it, that Deshaun Watson is average to above average. I mean, why is that so hard for us to conceive? It's just possible, man. And I'm not betting on it, but I'm certainly willing to bet on it in other ways, in taking the value on Deshaun Watson as a player in startups seems like a no-brainer. We're doing a startup right now. It'll be interesting to see where he goes, based on the fact that all three of us are right here while I'm saying this, and everybody in the league is listening to me say it. So that'll be an interesting ADP to watch. Like, this is so much fun, but I still think there's some outcomes here, like a Jacoby Brissett Arizona outcome, right? Where they're behind. They're probably not going to be that good, right? And maybe they're just slinging it around. They get those, because look, that's what it was the year before with Jameis. There was a high variance, high volume, very prolific, slanging, right? Exactly. So I mean, there are some outcomes that could look something like that, where these guys just get volume, and that's where it comes from.
Mm-hmm. I think the trickiest piece is that Fannin is thrown in the mix, and he commands volume too, right? And so I think those guys are all fairly complementary. I would say maybe Fannin and Concepcion maybe amalgamate some sort of targets in there a little bit, right? They have in the Venn diagram of their targets, there is a little bit of a crossover there. Not so much with Boston, but I think there is complementary there, where those three guys are going to be on the field.
That's what I'm saying, right?
In their two wide sets for the next few years. And so we can have some confidence in that. And we mentioned on the Jacob show, I know we're referencing back or whatever, but that maybe early season, after those two guys have had some stinkers in this offense, is the time to buy them, with the prospects that they could be getting a young high draft pick quarterback next year.
And Trav, while the odds of all three of them, Fannin, Boston, and Concepcion, all three of them hitting is very low. The odds of one or two of them hitting is not.
Totally. By way of Fannin playing a different position, right? Like, he hits and one of those wide receivers hits, possibly.
That's possible. Yeah, right.
Bingo. Couple more, boys, before we ride out. It's been an absolute blast getting back in the lab with you guys. And as you mentioned there, shout out to the Listener League. We got our second Listener League up and running. The draft has started, and we're almost 2 rounds in, so we'll refrain from any more table talk. Deshaun Watson is maybe as far as we'll go there.
Right.
But a couple more on the sheet here, boys. Kenyon Sadiq. Joe, you actually put this as a note. You asked if his rookie season is DOA. He suffered a setback from offseason hernia surgery. He's going to miss a couple of weeks of camp, which, as a rookie, missing a couple of weeks of camp is so extraordinarily important that he is going to have to put in some crazy work to even be the starter once he's back and healthy. I think Mason Taylor probably has the early season drop on him for that role. Would you guys, if there's a discount off of this in his early season, maybe lack of production, would you guys, famous non-investors in Kenyon Sadiq, maybe think about investing in the upside if it comes on the cheap?
How did you know that's exactly where I was going to go with this, right? Yeah. This is
because we're back together, and I know you guys.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, this is actually what you hope for if you faded Sadiq, right? It's like, I have 0 shares, was not touching him, had absolutely no interest, and guess what? He's lost value, and he's going to continue to lose value, because we know that when you miss training camp, like he is going to, it seems like, miss the entirety of training camp, they're hoping he's ready for week 1. Well, guess what? He ain't playing in week 1. Mike Tomlin had that famous quote, like, train has left the station, right? He wasn't on it, right? He was talking about my former boy, Roman Wilson, who, by the way, is also having a pretty good offseason. But anyways, he's missed the train, right? He can't. I see Trav laughing in the background. He muted himself. He missed the train. He is not going to be part of the early season game plan. And so the value is going to continue to drop. And the Dynasty owner who may not be as patient and may, just look at rookie year production or lack thereof and think, oh man, I should get off this investment early. Those are the kinds of guys that you're going to want to target in your league, because if you did have some interest in dabbling in Sadiq, but you didn't get him, there's going to be a buying opportunity. He's going to be available for way less than a first. A 27-second was already worth kind of what the late round first was this year from the market's eye. So I think you got to be paying less than that. Maybe it's just another tight end that you want to pivot off of, and they're desperate for tight end production is probably the way to do it. Anybody taking a tight end in the first round of their dynasty draft is probably desperate for production there. So maybe you throw him like a Travis Kelce or something and see if he could take the upside swing on a Sadiq.
Yeah, it's almost like the Loveland deal I did last year, where I paid on top of Kelce to get Loveland. You don't have to pay much necessarily on top of Kelce to get Sadiq. It's not a second on top of Kelce, but maybe a throw in running back or a third, like a late four or a fourth.
Give them the production and a third, and that might get it done.
Yep.
Yeah, because I have Travis Kelce as a top 10 tight end this year, boys, for my 2026 rankings. And to your point, Joe, I was going to come in and say, there's a ton of teams that had a Dalton Schultz as their starter and drafted Kenyon Sadiq saying, hell yeah. And they're not saying that right now. So,
by the way, I was wondering if I was 0 shares, 0 cares. No, I am 1 single share. Care to guess the league that I have, Mr.
Underground?
I'm in that league. Yeah, I was gonna say, I know I saw it happen.
It's so hilarious that on the Dynasty Underground, where you've been vehemently saying don't draft him at his cost, that listener league is the one where you have him, and you guys are going to be more shocked than that to know I have 0 Kenyon Sadiq.
Really?
I just checked right now, and I have none of them. I was looking at a trade that I did when we were talking about Josh Downs earlier. I did that Bhayshul, and I received Bhayshul in a second for Downs in a 108. That 108 became Kenyon Sadiq, but I didn't actually end up having him, which I was surprised to see. I thought I took one of them, but
you guys know who? You guys want to know who my most rostered player is now? Take a wild guess.
Is it Roman Wilson?
No.
That's why I was laughing, by the way. It was your shameful plug of Roman
He's
Wilson.
Clearly the wide receiver 3. Everybody's saying it. Everybody knows it. The wide receiver 3 in an Aaron Rodgers offense. Woo!
Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah.
It's Oscar Delp, right? What do we preach all offseason? Just don't draft these tight ends this early. Just there's interesting values in the third round. So it's Delp. I think I'm like over 50%. It's kind of hilarious.
That's great. That's a great guy to be that big, that heavy on. My number 1 player is Harold Fannin, just for the record.
Nice. I've got a decent amount of Fannin too.
It's
I got so cheap.
You guys aren't going to be surprised by this. My number 1 is Quinshawn Judkins, and my number 2 is JSN.
That's nice. What percentage are we talking about? What percentage?
36.
36. Yeah. You're more careful than me. I just go all in on some guys.
I have way less leagues than you guys though too, right?
You know who my number 1 running back is?
Who's that?
Jonathan Brooks.
Nice.
I like that.
Nice.
Yep.
Mine's Tuten. I already know this off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 36% JSN, Tate, Loveland, 36% Goff, Bhayshul, Higgins, Jayden Higgins, 36% Terrence Ferguson, on brand. Our site's fucking awesome, boys.
You're gonna love the Terrence Ferguson porn sesh we did in the undrafted. So you'll love that. Go check it out.
Nice. I'm gonna listen to that one in the shower.
Yeah, you will. There's a couple of hashtag moments for you.
Perfect. I love that. Last one, boys. Joe, you actually put this one on the show sheet as well, and I think it's very good for us to take note, because I don't think this guy, he's definitely not being drafted to where his ceiling is, and I don't know if he's necessarily getting that kind of love for what he might still have in the tank, and that's DJ Moore out in Buffalo. He's already earned number 1 treatment from Josh Allen, got a bunch of trust out there. You see him jumping around and celebrating big plays with the team and stuff, so he is mixing in well in Buffalo. Do you think he's a screaming value right now, Joe?
I mean, in Dynasty, I think that you can get him pretty cheaply. I think you can get him for a second. And if you're willing to fire a second on Mike Evans for, that late career production, why wouldn't you do it for DJ Moore? So that train may have left the station, but I think that it's probably worth the shot because Josh Allen hasn't had a pass catcher of consequence for some time. We've wanted it to be Shakir. We've wanted it to be Kincaid. Some people wanted it to be Keon Coleman, who we never really loved. It's seen the vibes, at least. This is very vibe based. We don't have that much data, obviously, no game data. But the vibes are very much DJ Moore has taken control of this wide receiver room, and it makes a ton of sense because he is the kind of guy that would work well with a Josh Allen. So I just think that he's worth putting feelers out for because the person who owns DJ Moore in your league probably has gotten pretty frustrated with him over the last couple of years and might be looking for an off ramp, and you might be able to steal a couple years of production with, the best fantasy quarterback in the league.
Yeah. I was able to, I think we mentioned this trade on this show before. I was able to buy him for a 28 second and Isaiah Bond and Pat Bryant.
So 28 second, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And in the OTC fantasy trade database, it is running rampant with DJ Moore for 27 second trades. And so that trade is absolutely there. And I wouldn't trade a 27 second for the Mike Evans production. I would trade a 27 second right now for the DJ Moore production for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay, boys, that does it. The band was back together. It felt great to get into the lab with you guys and talk shop. We're back in now. I know we touched a lot of grass over the summer to our audience. We love how loyal and faithful you all are. We're back. We are ready to rip. No more vacations that we can foresee. And we're just going to keep stepping into the underground and having a good time with all of you and giving you guys banger input into how to win your dynasty leagues. So for Jax Falcone, for one Joe Quavius Kuvetakis, go check out that site. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. I am Trav. We will see you next week. Peace.